Hello, everyone. I'm James Milan. This is the DPCD update. That's Department of Planning and Community Development. We have a very rich one here in town, and we have the director, Claire Ricker, with us today for this DPCD update. Hi, Claire.
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm doing well,
Good.
Always happy to talk to you. I know we've got some meatier topics coming up to talk about, but let's talk mention quickly a couple of things you want to update us about.
Sure. I'd love to. It's springtime, and so I think folks have started to notice that the Bluebike stations are coming back online. We have 6 stations in total. We have 3 up and running right now at Thorndike Field, Spy Pond, and Arlington Center. We will be populating the other 3 very soon, and hopefully people can get back on their Bluebikes as the weather gets better. Another announcement I wanted to make is, our sustainability coordinator, Talia Fox, won another grant, the Community First project. And this is a really interesting one. It's going to allow us to hire an energy advocate who can do some really direct outreach to property owners, landlords, renters, and educate them on, some of the efficiency programs we have going on, certainly Electrify Arlington, and other things like that. So it's $20,000 a year for 2 years. And we're looking forward to bringing that person on board as well. She has a robust, I'll call it a bullpen of volunteers, people who are really involved. But this will be a chance for us to get someone, in the office who's professionally oriented to do the really, really deep kind of outreach. So we're very excited about that. And certainly congratulations, Talia, on the grant.
Yeah. Great news, in both cases. I mean, we're officially into spring now, and it even feels like it in these last couple of days. So people are going to be thinking about those bikes. It's a wonderful, thing to anticipate. And then, we are real good at getting grants in this town, and Talia has certainly proven herself in that way. And but as you describe it, it really sounds like this is going to be, have direct impact on lots and lots of folks, and provide a way of disseminating really important information, kind of one-on-one maybe even. So Sounds great. Right. Okay, on to the next topic, which is a familiar one from our discussions and for people in town, of course. And I know last week there was a concept design presented around the Mass Ave Appleton corridor project. Why don't you give us an update on that, please?
Sure. So as part of the outreach on this project, we had a public meeting last week on the 15th about Mass Ave and Appleton, about the corridor. We had about 50 people there, which is about as many as we had in the fall meeting. We were looking at what we believe is to be close to a final concept for the corridor. I think that there are still some significant questions that we need answered. In particular, how we intend to use the right-of-way, regarding parking, regarding bike lanes. It's still an open question about, do we do something with Appleton Place? Do we not? And so there's still, I think, real discussion to be had about how this project could be implemented and make everybody, if at least not, completely happy, then at least, somewhat satisfied with the result. So it was a really good meeting, and it was a chance for us to get some comments, maybe from voices that we don't always hear. And I think it was very constructive. So in the meantime, I'm collecting comments. You still have the ability to comment on the design document and on the concept. And so our consultant will be compiling all the comments together, and then we can see how that may play out in the drawing. And certainly I've been having one-on-one conversations with folks about priorities out there. So you'll be seeing we need to present a final concept to Select Board. It's clear to me that what we need to present is something that we can build. And so, we're still, finalizing the details on the design, and working with those, I think, who are probably primarily the most affected, by changes in the corridor, to make sure that their voices are heard in the project as well.
I go through that intersection literally every day and multiple times per day. I'm sure there are many other Arlingtonians who could say that. And I have to say, in recent weeks and months, I've gone through there just recognizing just how complicated a kind of just cross section of bikes, people, cars, students, et cetera, there is there. So it is no surprise that this is going to take a little while to get it as right as we can. And as you said, not everybody's not going to be totally happy. Hey, that seems just par for the course in this case.
I think when we do our work, we try really hard not to preclude something else from happening in the future. And that's really a goal of mine. If this is the context of the project today, is there something potentially in the future that could still happen that we're not going to keep from happening, with the design that we're doing now?
Really good thinking, and no wonder you're the director of the Department of Planning. So moving on from very familiar to even more familiar as a topic, especially in our recent conversations, you have an update about MBTA communities.
I do. So we had MBTA Communities Visioning Session, and it was fantastic. I'm still sort of riding a high from the meeting. Kudos to my deputy director Kelly Linema for setting that up. I think it was just a great, a great example of community participation at the scale that we did. We had 230 people register for a remote meeting, and we did it digitally over Zoom, and over 130 attendees. We had 130 people or so show up. Again, positive, constructive discussion. The meeting was recorded and it was posted along with the slides. And if you were unable to attend, you can certainly watch the meeting. Also, we have our community-wide survey is posted on town website as well. And this is the survey. These are the survey questions that we asked in the meeting. And essentially the way that broke down was, we had a group, the 130 or so folks in the main room. And then we went into some breakout groups to talk about, different values, different priorities for where we might cite a district. I thought that was a really effective way to do it. And it had, really engendered a lot of good conversation. So again, we'll be compiling comments, as we move forward and using those to sort of drive our next moves. And even, our efforts to put together, initial concepts about, district location. I do want to say, also we're inviting residents to hold their own visioning sessions, and we're putting together a meeting in a box. And we will be able to provide the meeting in a box kits to those who want to, inform their families and friends about what's going on with MBTA communities and get some good information. I think there's something else I wanted to speak to here, because the meeting that we had last week was actually mentioned in an article in Commonwealth Magazine about the Attorney General, who has recently released an advisory that non-compliance with MBTA communities will be viewed by her office as an issue of housing discrimination. And so I think in her leadership on this issue, what she's making clear is that, failure to adopt a district is really, putting certain communities under the spotlight, housing policy and things like that. And the AG has made it, very, very clear that, she is not looking at non-compliance as, an administrative, maybe we will, maybe we won't. She's very serious about towns adopting the MBTA communities. So, we continue to just engage as much as we can, as well as we can with the town, how we can best apply the law in context and really, how we can shape a district to Arlington's values. What do we want to do? And it's a really exciting time. And I think that folks are ready for this conversation. And at least from the meeting that we had last week, I thought, we definitely had a lot of folks really talking about how do we comply? What are our values? What are the best ways for us to do that? And that's just thrilling to me, because that means people are actually really thinking, with some eye to the future, about the possibilities for residential, for more houses in Arlington. So it went really well.
Yeah, I can tell that you are excited. And, I'm very glad to hear, having spoken to lots of people about this recently, very glad to hear that, the conversation seems to have moved as it needs to move, it feels like, to how can we best comply, rather than can we say yes or no? No, it's really not an issue of that anymore, right? It's really, as you just said, from the AG's office, the message is clear, and just in general, with the proportion of towns that have, tried to opt out versus all the ones who are involved, 8 out of 170, whatever that was. It all seems very clear now that yes, we need to spend our time and we need to work out among us how best to comply. And so it's great to hear that that's the grounds on which this conversation is moving forward.
And so the 8 towns who were adamant about non-compliance has now decreased to 4 towns. There are now 4 towns that are threatening non-compliance.
Yeah, so. I mean, obviously the repercussions seem pretty draconian, really. Yeah. I mean, it's very clear. The state is very serious about wanting us to, figure out town by town how we are going to comply to this, but definitely refusal is not an option. So
correct. So we move forward with the campaign, and we'll have results, I think, from the community-wide survey as soon as we're able to put them together, and we will be doing another public meeting. Likely after town meeting, but if we can do it sooner, then we certainly will.
Ah, yes, town meeting. That subject for future discussions. But I think we've got one more topic to touch on today.
We do, and this is a cool project that we've been working on for about a year. We have done an archaeological survey of our historic archaeological sites, as well as we've also done, as a separate document, documentation and inventory of town-owned historic properties. Now, for the archaeological survey, basically what we were looking at doing was putting together a map of sensitive archaeological areas, and then working with a professional to make recommendations to allow for better protection of the significant resources by the town, and some suggestions about, should we put any of these sites on a nomination form for the National Register. So the archaeological study looked into deeper understanding of the old burying ground, the Prince Hall Cemetery, areas along the Millbrook corridor, Spy Pond, Elizabeth Island. They did a lot of work out there, assessing the sites, documenting the sites, and then mapping the sites. So that will be a wonderful document, I think, for us to look at and, to keep in mind, as we're doing projects, and obviously, as a resource for the town. Now, for the town-owned historic properties, we really looked at properties that are not already protected in a local historic district or national register, or weren't, documented according to current standards for historic documentation. From both of these projects, we ended up with 44 MACRIS information forms. And what MACRIS is it's the Massachusetts Historical Commission's cultural resource information system. So this, again, will be just a bevy of information will be available on that website. We do have, like I said, 44 information forms that we're looking to put up there, and it certainly could be helpful to any resource, researchers, or anyone curious in the future. So we will be doing a public presentation of those studies too at a date TBD. We're just finalizing both draft documents.
Very cool, as you said. Absolutely. And interesting both to finish today with something that we hadn't heard about in previous DPCD updates, for one thing. And secondly, something that, kind of ties the past and the future together in a sense.
Yes.
So very cool. And we'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Anything that we have missed, Claire?
Nothing I can think of.
I think I agree. All right, we will let you go. Get back to your busy day. We'll get to ours, and we'll let the viewers get to theirs. Okay. I have been speaking with Claire Ricker. She is the director of our Department of Planning and Community Development for this DPCD update. We appreciate Claire's time. We always do, and we appreciate yours too. I'm James Milan, and we will see you next time.